All right, everyone, here we go. We're going to spend a little bit of time today, a little bit more on subtracting integers. You were introduced to a number of problems and yesterday, and a number of ways the problems will look. Now we're going to go a little deeper into it with some word problems, some higher order problems, some critique problems, and see if I can continue to hopefully make this make a little bit of sense. So here we go. In subtracting integers, it's lesson 1-4. The book explains it away using number lines, where you start at 0, but if you've got a positive 3 with a minusing 8 off of it, and they work it out. You can do the number line if that makes sense. You've seen me do the number line in class, where you find the starting point and then just figure out how much in the other direction you're going. You can work the problems that way. Maybe I'll show you a couple here. But what they're trying to do is just show you that it's all mappable. It's a little difficult to do, 6 minus 4, that's easy to do. But how do you map -6 minus 4 negatives? How do I say in a good way that you start at -6 and then you take away 4 of the negatives, so you come back to -2? Sometimes it's hard to say that, which is why I taught that you just take those minus a negative and turn them into plus. You'll see them use arrows in a number line about how subtracting is the same thing as adding the opposite. So adding the opposite back on, and again, it can cause a little bit of grief doing it that way, but it's how they want you to see. One way you can think of subtraction is, what's the difference between the two numbers? That's one thing the number line will sometimes accomplish. What's the difference between -6? This minus means difference. What's the difference between -6 and -4? Well, the amount between it, the difference is 2, and it's in the positive direction. Well, it's over here in the negative. It's a -2, even though it goes up. 4 minus a -6. What's the difference between 4 and -6? If I've got 4 there and -6 over there, what's the difference between those two? What's the gap there? Well, the gap is 10. And if you do the addition, you'll find that it's 10. So finding the gap, finding the difference, find how much is between them is one way to work it out. On some problems where they make you work through the process, Max sprinting forward 10 feet and then stopping and sprinting back 15, you subtraction, how would you do that? Well, if he starts by forward 10 feet, that means he's at positive 10, or you might just write the 10. And then he sprints back, or he goes backwards 15. Where does he end up? Well, 10 minus 15. You can use your calculator, you get -5. So relative to where he started, he's 5 in the negative from where he started. These are the kind of things they're asking today. Higher order way of looking at this is they give you a graph and you have to come up with the numbers. What does this represent? Well, if you start by going to -2, so that's the beginning, 0's really the starting, but if you start at going to -2, and then from that point you go down, you end up at -8. How many did you go down? You went down another 6. So you got -2 minus 8, or minus 6. That leaves you to -8. Another saying, do a different one. As long as you start at 0 and go to some place, but then go the opposite direction. Subtraction is difference, is opposite. Then anything you draw, you can draw as short an arrow as you want, or as long as the one you want. Or if you do it in this direction and then go the opposite direction, minus is always this way. But when the book is asking for something, if you come up with an example that's close, I'm happy with it. Sometimes, as you've seen, some of the ways they ask the questions, it's difficult to interpret, and that's on purpose. They're trying to make it hard, but in the hard to interpret problems, if you come up with something that represents the same concept, I'm fine with it. So a crane, it starts right here. A crane lifts it up 8 feet. Truck drives away, and then it goes down 13 feet. What's the final position of the pallet relative to where it started? Well, if it started here, starts right here, what's that amount right there is what they're wondering. So it started by going up 8, and then at minus 13. So it ended up at negative 5, or it ended up 5 lower than where it started, 8 minus 13. On 15, the elevation of a country is 5,762 feet above sea level. At its lowest point, it's below sea level, so that's a negative 9. Write an expression using integers that represents the difference. So we know we're going to be doing difference. We're going to be subtracting them between the two. Well, I've got this positive 5,762. I'm going to subtract off this other one, this 9 feet below 0. And if you want, you can use the parentheses that I said you'll see a lot. Now you have a difference. You have the space between those two items. And if you can picture it, you've got this country up here. Here's sea level. And here's the area below. So what is this distance from there to there? Well, you know you're going to be adding the part above to the part below. And that's what this minus and negative does. It adds it together. The difference is a positive because it's distance, so it's going to be written as a positive number. And what is the difference? Well, when you subtract those two, this number subtract negative 9, you get 5,771. And you can use your calculator to see if that's the right number. 5,771 as I speed through this. And finally, to see if this makes sense, which of these number lines shows 2 minus 4? They're using this bright colored arrow as the first arrow. And then the blue one is the second. So starting at the 0, which of these arrows goes to 2 to begin with? That first one goes to 4, that one goes to negative 4, that one goes to negative 2, and this one goes to 2. It goes to 2 to begin with. And then does it minus 4? Does it go this direction on the number line 4? Yes, it does. It goes down 4 to negative 2. So on that one, the answer is B. These are just a few examples of word problems trying to get you to understand what subtraction means, the difference between numbers, going left on a number line, the gap between two numbers, and these are some examples. You can look and see what your assignment is to do some of the higher order problems on the computer. Thanks for watching.